Hello and welcome to this lecture. So in this lecture we'll talk about host header injection attack. So we have already covered bunch of stuff till now. We have already seen how to just make a reverse shell, how to make the keylogger with the help of Python, make a MAC changer, how to remain anonymous with the help of the Python or basically the Tor browser. So we have learned bunch of stuff till now. So it's time to go further in the XSS attack and see what is this host header attack. So let's see what is this host header attack. So first of all, it is always a common practice that the web server is hosted in the several website or several application on the same IP address. So if you have ever made or basically host the website, then you could see that we just get the root password and the root IP and basically the username, which would be obviously the root. So that is the convention. We just normally host all the web application or the websites on the same IP address. So that is why there is a host header exists. That means the host header specify which website or web application should process an incoming HTTP request. So if you have ever hosted the website online, so it can be from the Amazon or it can be from the GoDaddy, then you could get something like a cPanel. So if you want to log in into the cPanel or if you want to log in through the PuTTY, then you have to make use of IP addresses. So all the web application will be hosted in the IP addresses. So that websites can be the any application that, like it can be made with the Python from the Django framework, or it can be also made with the Laravel PHP framework. So it is always hosted on the same IP address. So that is why basically host header exists, and we'll see how to just crack this host header. So the web server uses the value of this header. So we have something like a host. So host is the parameter that is we are going to just see in this lecture. So we can just dispatch the request to the specified website or web application. So that means the host parameter is responsible to see the specific response or basically specific request to that website. So each web application hosted on the same IP address is commonly referred to as a virtual host. So it can be the shared virtual host or it can be the private virtual host, but there is something that is a virtual host where the domain or basically the hosting is done, and that's why we can just make the host header attack. So we'll see about this host header attack in this lecture, in the upcoming lecture. So any other, that is the example, can be the arbitrary host header, and we'll just make use of X forwarded host header. So we can just inject this new parameter to the burp suite and see if there is any host header injection attack or not. So what happens normally is we'll just make any application or any name over here. So you can see we have just given here www.example.com. so instead of this we can just make use of something like www.bing.com or twitter.com and see if there is a host header injection attack. So we'll just search for this parameter, that is host parameter, and if this will just redirect to the new websites that is we just mentioned over here, then there is a host header injection. And if this is not valid, or basically if there is no if there is no redirection, or you can also say the host header attack, then you will simply just inject the arbitrary host header here, which is named as the X forwarded host, and we'll just mention here the attacker, basically at the attacker website or the malicious website or any other website over here. So this is the way host header attacks work, and in the next upcoming lecture we'll see how to just inject the host header injection, or basically how to get the URL redirection from these host parameters. So the main advantage or the two major attack vectors that the host header attacks enable are the web cache poisoning and the abuses of the alternative channel for conducting sensitive operations such as a password reset. So this is the major attack that can be done with the host header, and one is the web caching poisoning. We'll see about this web cache poisoning, and another one is a password reset, which is basically the abuses of alternative channel for conducting sensitive operation, that is basically the password reset. So it is done with the arbitrary parameter. We'll see all about that in the upcoming lecture. So this is the short theory on the host header injection attack, how host header work, and we basically attack on these two parameter, that is a host parameter and the X forwarded host, which is the arbitrary host header. So let's see how this work in the next lecture.